quarter note, eighth note, 16th note, 2 bars, 4 bars, 16 bars. These are all matters of time. But when it comes to sequencing, how do we create lush, evolving, and organic sequences without the use of a traditional sequencer? I see this question get asked a lot, and as it turns out, I've got some tips for you. But why would you want to do this? Well, for starters, you want to remove the static element from your music to create lush and organic sequences that evolve over time and help you take your music to the next level. And that's what we're going to go over here in today's video. So if you like this kind of video, make sure you smash that like button on the way in, subscribe to this channel if you guys feel called to do so, and let's get into some sequencing secrets. All right, so here we are inside of Ableton Live 11. Now, the goal with today's video is to show you guys how to create some organic sequences that have a real natural feel to them. You know, I see a lot of guys out there who are wondering about sequencing, specifically related to this style of music. And so I thought to myself, well, what if we could sort of make a video to go over not only the basics of sequencing, but then show you guys exactly how I've developed techniques that evolve sequences and really take them to the next level. That's what we're gonna do here today, all right? So I've got a backing track queued up, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna listen to that backing track, and then we're gonna talk about sequencing from a compositional standpoint, all right? So let's listen. Now, what if I was gonna put a sequence on top of this? It might sound something like this. But the question is, how did I arrive at this sequence? That's what we're gonna go over, all right? So let's back up a little bit. Let's kind of back up and we'll talk about some basic sequencing first, all right? So you see that this is just 4 quarter notes on a 1-bar MIDI clip, all right? And if I play these 4 quarter notes, they're in the key of A minor, 81 beats per minute. It sounds like this. Right, that's very static. But you could take that and you could put a delay on top of that sequence and it might sound a little better. So let's talk about delay for a second. This is a Valhalla delay, stock Valhalla delay, all right? I'm just gonna put it on single and eighth note delay. So if we have 4 quarter notes and then we have an eighth note delay, you're gonna get a delay in the middle of every single quarter note because that's what eighth note is. It's half of what the quarter note is. So check it out. Okay, that's just a good example of what eighth note delay is. Now, what if we take the dotted eighth note delay and we put that on top of our sequence? What is dotted eighth note? Let's talk about that first. So basically a dotted eighth note is half a beat added to a quarter of a beat, right? So 1/2 plus 1/4 is equal to 3/4 of a whole beat. In plain language, that is like adding a little bit of rhythm to your actual delay signal. So you're adding that doom, do-doom, do-doom, do-doom. You're adding that to your sequence, right? And it's creating this sort of like bouncy kind of feel to it. I use dotted eighth note all the time in my music. That's one of my biggest secrets is that I use dotted eighth note everywhere. So check it out. This is what it sounds like with dotted eighth note delay. Right? Because if you combine it with that slapback, that sounds interesting to me. All right, but everybody knows about the dotted eighth note, so I'm really not gonna go over that much. However, what about the basic sequencing element? So what if we took that simple four note sequence and then we added a little bit of eighth notes in between? So like little eighth notes to step it up, right? To kind of emulate that dotted eighth note thing without using a dotted eighth note. Here's what that sounds like. This is like level 2. And you can hear that those steps are sort of doubling up on the dotted eighth note because you're almost emulating what a dotted eighth note does, all right? So that's quarter notes. You can sort of evolve on that. You can play with the different velocities and stuff, and you can also play with the filtering, obviously the synth. We didn't even talk about the synth patch, but let's talk about now eighth note sequences, all right? So this is an eighth note sequence, And what we're going to do is I'm going to remove that delay, and we're just going to listen to what the eighth note sequence sounds like without any delay on it. So here's what it sounds like. Right, so it's sort of a similar style, right? But when you put that dotted eighth note delay on it, this is what it sounds like. Cool, right? A lot of the times you'll hear me use that in my own music. However, I'm using a ping pong dotted eighth note delay. So all we gotta do is switch the style to ping pong, dotted eighth note. So we're using the stereo field to sort of bounce those notes back and forth. This is what it sounds like. Now we're getting somewhere, right? So now we're playing with the stereo field. We got dotted eighth note ping pong. Cool, we're in business. But let's talk about the sequencing again. So we could use that to our advantage, right? We could also start playing with 16th notes. Now we're getting a little more like dense because we're using more notes. So here's a 16th note sequence with no breaks. It's just straight 16th notes with that ping pong dotted eighth note delay. See, we're getting some repeats there. Like the delays are hitting the notes, but you're getting a really dense field. You could up the density here of the delay, and that might sound cool. Like you can up the mix, up the feedback. I use that effect a lot. Is that you're sort of like creating a dense field and you don't really know where the sequence is and where the delay is hitting. That can sound cool as well. All right. So now let's talk about removing some of those steps. So we had a 16th note sequence. Let's remove some of those notes and then see where we can go with that, because that creates gaps in our sound, but it also creates gaps for the delay to fall into. Cool. That sounds a little bit more, evolved. You could contrast the first example with the last example, and you'd get something that sounds really interesting. So if we took, say, this first one, and then we added another like lane or another synth or whatever that was doing this, that would sound really interesting, wouldn't it? However, let's talk about this example that I gave. It was just sort of like, okay, how do we arrive here at this place? This is what the example sounded like. This is a 2-bar MIDI clip with 16th notes on it. You can see though that they're all kind of like spread out and they're sort of making this melodic line. How did I arrive at this place? Let me show you by example. All right, so I'm going to create another scene here. Let's just insert scene, and I'm going to create a clip here, and I'm going to create it at 2 bars. All right, I'm going to make sure that I'm at 16th notes. Now I'm also going to turn off that delay. So I can focus on the composition here. And let's talk about this. So here's the top tip. The top tip for you I have is I see, you can do the spray and pray method and just basically just spray notes on. You can do that, all right? So this is what that sounded like. I mean, it's not bad, right? That's not a bad way to go. However, here's the top tip. Instead of trying to do that, what I want you to do is lower the tempo by like half. So let's say like 37 to 40 beats per minute, right? And put on your metronome, okay? Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna listen to this sequence again, and we're gonna listen really closely to see what notes stand out as like off, right? And then we're going to either remove or add notes where we think they should be. Because when it's slowed down to a slower speed, you get a better perspective on what notes should go where. Check this out. Right? So like those notes that hit on beat, they almost sounded like they shouldn't have been there, right? So maybe removing this C right here and moving it 1/2 step back, right? And then adding another note here. Okay, check it out. Right? And so I'm sort of like getting an idea like da na 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 na. And you can kind of play it within your head, right? There we go. There we go. There we go. Right? So I created this half. You could either duplicate that half and say, all right, that's my sequence, just like that. Or instead, you could intentionally go in and draw the velocities here. So making sure that your synth making sure that your synth is set to accept velocity. So if your patch is velocity sensitive, tied to the amp envelope, that's a good thing to do, which it is right here. You can see this knob right here is sort of like tied into the amp envelope. And now what we're gonna hear with this delay is we're gonna hear something that sounds really organic. I'm gonna double it up just for example purposes. And now listen to this, all right? So let's make sure our delay is on. We got a ping pong dotted eighth note delay, and here's what we just created. Metronome. Right, so now it sounds like those notes were meant to be there, at least from my perspective. Like it sounds like, okay, those notes make sense to me, right? That's a good way to go. So like slowing down your tempo and then trying to dial in your sequences, that's my top tip for you. Now, the other thing you can do is you not only can you use this on notes, but you can also use this on percussion, right? So like if you're like spraying hi-hats, for example, like say I was just gonna make, this is like a glitch percussion. I have a bunch of samples here, right? One way to go would be saying, all right, well, let's just draw in some notes here. You can just draw them in. Cool. And you know, that might sound okay, right? If you're going to do something like just making a hi-hat pattern like this. Let's solo this. Right? So you could do that. Or what we could do is use the exact same technique that we used with the note sequences on our hi-hats. All right, so that's what we're gonna do. Let's half our tempo. Let's go to like 37 around there and turn on our metronome, all right? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna right click on this MIDI clip and I'm going to say 132s. Now 132s is 1/32 notes. That's a higher level than 1/16. So you could add a couple more notes in here. But what we're gonna do, you guys remember from the glitch percussion video, you can use Control 1 and 2 or Option 1 and 2 on a Mac to zero in even further. So let's go ahead and use Control 1 and just add in some more like really detailed notes to kind of zero in. But remember, we're only 37 beats per minute now. We can really listen to find out exactly where those notes are supposed to go. Check it out. Right? So there might be one more in here. Let's go back to 32s and we'll add one more in here. Check it out. I like that. So let's go Control 1. We'll add a really fast one here. Okay, maybe the fast one doesn't fall on beat. Maybe it falls like right after it. So we'll go like this and we'll spray that one right there. Ooh, and we'll put one in here like this, like that. There we go. I like that. Cool. And we'll add a couple more in here. Maybe make this one 2. And then we'll go really far in. We're getting super micro detailed here, but that's kind of the fun of it because you can actually zero in and say, all right, well, what do I actually want to create and what sounds good? Nice. And then one more here. There we go. Okay, cool. Now let's listen to this. I'm going to bring the tempo back up to what we had it. Turn off the metronome, unsolo this track, bring up our sequence and bring it all together, all right? So let's make sure the delay is on. The delay is on. Here's what this sounds like. You see? By slowing things down, you actually move forward because your composition sounds tighter, more organic, and more evolved than you could if you were just like trying to do things in real time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I truly enjoyed making it. If you want to see more composition style, more of the fundamental side of ambient music, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know, what's your favorite way to do this? What's your favorite way to sequence and evolve sequences. I love hearing from you guys. So, to wrap things up, if you take things at a fundamental basic level and then try to sort of grow things from there, right? And by using that top tip that I gave you, you're gonna create organic and natural sounding sequences that you can evolve over time. And we didn't even discuss the sound design possibilities. But with that and these compositional techniques, the possibilities are endless. My name is Chris from Signs of Life. If you want to learn more, be sure to check out my Patreon. I've got tons of extra tutorials on there. We got exclusive live streams going off every single week. I've got preset packs. We got one-on-one ambient coaching. There's tons to offer you on that Patreon. And by doing so and signing up and joining, it supports me as a full-time ambient music and content creator as well. I truly appreciate your time, energy, and presence. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to more ambient music tutorials like this in the future. All right, so as always, keep your heads in the clouds and your feet planted firmly on the ground. My name is Chris from Signs of Life. I will see you all in the next one.